Thank you for joining us for this episode of Inside Town Hall. I'm your host, Madeline Shields. Our ever-growing city is home to many people from diverse cultures. That's where the Multicultural Center comes, and it plays a role to new citizens in Sioux Falls. Joining me is City Councilor Pat Starr, and his guest is Valeria Wicker, the new Multicultural Center Supervisor. Welcome.
Thank you.
So, Councilor Starr, you have sat on the board of the Multicultural Center. Tell us a little bit about this organization and who it helps.
Sure. One of the things that have been one of my best duties of being on the City Council is being part of the Multicultural Center. So taking people who are new to our community, introducing them, whether it's social, workforce development, there's a closet with professional equipment. There's also been help with being able to get citizenship or a path to citizenship. So being able to work through a lot of those issues and really making Sioux Falls to be a welcoming community.
Sure. And let's talk a little bit about you, Valeria. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about your background, and are you new to Sioux Falls?
Yes, I grew up in Ohio, and I attended college on the East Coast, Wellesley College and Tufts University in the Boston area. I've lived during my adult life, I've lived overseas. I've lived in different states. South Dakota is the state where I've spent most of my time, though. And I moved to South Dakota in 2016, and my husband and I moved to Sioux Falls in 2021.
Okay, well, welcome to Sioux Falls.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about why you accepted this role.
Well, I was working at SDSU for the Wokini Initiative, which is a framework on the campus to improve the campus climate for Native American students and work towards their success in undergrad at SDSU. And I was commuting from Sioux Falls, and I like to be involved in the community where I live. I like to work with youth, and so I was looking for an opportunity like this to be in my own city and to be involved. So.
Councilor Starr, can you talk a little bit about the search for this position and some of the changes that have occurred with the Multicultural Center?
Sure. Over the last 2 years, we've really, as a board of directors for the Multicultural Center, there was our executive director left, and as you know, it's always difficult to fill those roles, to find the right person with the right background, with the right experiences that makes sense. One of the things that came up as part of the board meetings was maybe we need to do something different. We need to expand some of the reach of the program. So, it's kind of one of those things, as things kind of move, is that we started a partnership with Lutheran Social Services. And we got to that point where we said, you know what, this really needs to be led by their Center for New Americans. And combining with what the Multicultural Center was doing, combining that with what LSS was doing as immigrants and refugees were joining our community, as well as working with natives and people who already have been lifelong members of our community. So over the last year, the board had put a program together to combine the Multicultural Center and really disband the board of the Multicultural Center and become one with LSS. And so January 1st, LSS took over the programming that the Multicultural Center was doing. So finding a mission, finding the values of what are we missing in the community? What do we need to do? A lot of good programs that MCC was doing, but are now combined and being able to be expanded with a staff and a board and really a great new supervisor with varied experiences that can say, what are we doing? What does the community need?
Sure. Let's turn this over to you now. There are a lot of things I have in my notes here that the Multicultural Center wants to achieve, maybe has had these programs in the past, but wants to expound on them now. Talk a little bit about what you see, what's your vision for the future, and what are you excited about?
Well, I'm excited in the most immediate futures going into communities, into our diverse communities in Sioux Falls, and continuing those trusted relationships between the MCC and them. I'm going on a listening tour next month, and so I'm interested in meeting meeting different communities and just finding out the history of their relationship with MCC and what their ideas are for moving forward in the future. We're also continuing our interpreter and translation services. They're combined now with the Center for New Americans, and we have our Center for Interpretive Services over there. And so our fee-based interpreter services are continuing just the same. And we also have workforce development. Now that's different from CNA. Our workforce development can extend to a wider cross-section of the community, or prepare for interviews are able to reach out to us no matter how they came to Sioux Falls. And then we have driver's education programming. We have right now some funding to record instruction and translate it into the 5 most in-demand languages in Sioux Falls. And so we're working on refreshing the curriculum and renewing it and continuing that driver's education. That's so important to so many people. And then we also have done the Festival of Cultures, and it's something that the city looks forward to in the spring. And we're going to continue with that and possibly combine it with the Taste of Cultures for the Lutheran Social Services. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because who doesn't love that?
Yeah.
Well, you add food and music and entertainment and being able to share what is so important for you, where you came from, what you're part of your heritage, to be able to show that off. And that event, in the past at least, has been at Falls Park. So you take the jewel of the city and you add food and music. I mean, how can you go wrong?
Yeah.
One of the things that you pointed out is the driver's education program. And it was one of those things that we were doing for new people to the community and to the state, and it was simply an 8-hour program, and it was just enough to help people, where that program really needs to be expanded, because we're such quality drivers in Sioux Falls sometimes. We want to make sure that we teach the right, some of the right things about driving, and then the responsibilities that go with driving. Having a teenager, we talk about responsibilities of insurance and car maintenance, and want to make sure that that program really does a good job for folks. So it was one of those programs that we weren't doing a good job with at MCC, that LSS is really going to be able to take it forward and provide that. But it's a needed service in our community, because our public transportation, whether it's bus or those things, it is so important to have a car in our community to be able to work, to be part of the workforce. School days that we've seen this winter, with highs below 0, that it's important to do that. So being able to understand what it takes to drive and to be part of that is such an important thing that MCC can be good at.
And you touched on a lot of different things. Let's kind of dissect some of these. The interpreter service that you have. Talk about why that is so very important, and for an organization like yours to oversee it and to know who is best to help in that situation.
Yeah, interpreter work is very important for a patient and a doctor to be able to have that relationship and be understood mutually, for immigration services, for taking the driver's test, for example. So if to have someone there who can do that interpreting is so helpful for a person, for an individual to achieve their goals. I used to live in Spain, and even though I was fluent in Spanish, I didn't know a lot of the local laws and policies. I had a friend who was a social worker, and when it came time to sign a lease or anything, she could help me through that. And so I see those interpreters as also intermediaries that help to improve that understanding and get people situated in Sioux Falls faster. Our interpreter services team, they're very professional, and they're just some of the most just ethical and hardworking people that that I know. And it takes a lot to be able to convey physiological information, anatomical things, different types of information that someone coming from a different country, it might be a whole new concept to them for the first time as well. So,
it's interesting that many of us don't really understand how incredibly important that interpreter services are, because a lot of times the children are the first ones to learn English. However, no one wants their 12-year-old boy interpreting what their doctor is telling them in the exam room. And so I think it's really, people need to understand how critical that program is. And do you see that expanding at all into other languages as well?
I think we're always open to expanding. There's over 200 languages that are spoken in Sioux Falls, and so to be able to serve the widest cross section of the community is very important to us.
Sure.
You talked about medical a lot as part of the services the interpreters do, but there's also the government and the legal side of things too that is a big part of the interpretive services that MCC provides. The counties have gone away for civil cases of not providing interpreters anymore. So again, if any of the civil actions that you have that are part of the system are so important, and again, law becomes more than just interpreting. There's got to be some help to understand as well, and being able to make sure that communication between a lawyer and their client as part of those civil procedures are so important to understand what you're agreeing to, whether it's family matters or just all of any civil action that you're dealing with at the county levels.
Well, you talked about leases. I mean, leases are incredibly complex and difficult for anyone to understand. Is that where you see some of the bulk of this service that is needed as well?
Yeah, I think there is a need for that as well, to be able to. And LSS, the CNA also has an orientation program that helps the participants to navigate such things. But MCC is open to helping anyone who's looking forward, to renting an apartment. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the workforce development. I know that when new citizens come here, they are expected to, learn the language, get a job. It's so difficult. How do you help, and how do you foresee expanding these programs to help people get that job and having enough education so that there's not that language barrier?
Yeah. Well, I see CNA helping, walking with the clients more closely than I've seen at MCC, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would love to see a more comprehensive service at MCC where, if a client needs to get to an interview, that we can take them there, that there's we do a lot of follow-up, but just being more cohesive with what CNA offers, because it's a really strong program. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we've seen also at MCC is that it's been driven by the organization of what the needs of the community are, and so during the last 2 years we've spent a lot of time going the other direction. What do the members of the community need, rather than us telling them what they need? And that never works. And it's hard to say, okay, I think I know what someone who is new to Sioux Falls needs. I've lived here for my 30 years that I've been here. I don't know the experiences that a lot of these folks have had. What do we do to make the community more welcoming? What services do they need? What do we do to make them be a part of not make them, but to encourage them? What services do they need? So we've had community-driven programming for the last year. We've brought in Think 3D, now that I can say that easily. And Bonnie's led some monthly community meetings, and that surveying process of what services do we provide in the community and where aren't we doing a good job, because it doesn't make sense to continue to do the same things if it's not where the need is at. So whether that's education from the school district level, advanced secondary education, to communication and classes that are available, or just being able to celebrate your culture. and to share that with the community. So.
And the goal for our services and workforce development is self-sufficiency. So we have the career closet, which is a donor supplied closet for people who are looking for jobs, and then we also have a bus pass service for anyone who needs to get out to an interview or to attend the first days of their job before they get that first paycheck. So.
Sure. Talk a little bit about that career closet. And I always want to encourage people, if you have things to donate, don't bring something that you're not going to wear. If it was bad in the 70s, please leave it. Take it somewhere else or just toss it. I'll make that plug for you first.
Thank you.
Savers are goodwill. They recycle it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you're looking for more modern things, what people would want to wear, anyone would want to wear to a job interview.
And my view of career is it's expansive. So you have people looking for an office job, but career clothing is also heavy duty, steel-toed reinforced boots, or Carhartt type of clothes, and so we accept all of it. Yeah.
And how about call ahead? Because if you call ahead and say, what is it that you need right now? We're short on X, Y, or Z. This is what we could really use right now. And that eliminates the problem of having to sort things and then pass them along.
Yeah.
What would you like the citizens of Sioux Falls to know? People like me, or for anyone else, how can we help this transition and help our new neighbors?
Well, I think one thing that's important to know is in the past, the MCC has rented to private parties and to weddings, and that's something that we're stepping away from in order to bring the use of the Coliseum more into alignment with the vision and the mission of the Multicultural Center. And so I've had a lot of questions about that since I've started, and I would just love to get that message out there, and then also that we're working hard to continue our mission.
We can talk a little bit about here. It's we have the section here that says what's still in development. You're talking about the Coliseum. What would you like to see in the Coliseum?
I would love to see youth programming, especially coming off of the pandemic. There's a need for youth to have somewhere safe to go, and there's also, although we don't have our after-school program anymore, there's people working in the community with youth, and so to open the space up to use for artistic workshops. It's a beautiful theater, and some sporting events that we could have, like volleyball or basketball. We still have the equipment from the after-school program.
That's my favorite question, because I love the Coliseum. It's a beautiful historic venue. One of the things that I would like to see personally is that it's that more local, regional type of shows that showcase different cultures. Maybe it's a Hispanic night, it's a Sudanese night, it's a combination of being able to share that culture with the community in an affordable way. I've kind of thrown out the term sometimes, and Nancy will love this when I say this, but maybe it's a winter levitt. Where it's a little better than a local garage band, but it's not a national act that would come to the community. But bottom line, it's got to be affordable space for people to be able to support their art forms that they choose, but to be able to bring some of that culture and to share. And again, it can go back to the taste of cultures. It could go back to the food, music, the entertainment, that to be able to share who you are and to not feel left out. Sioux Falls is really good at that. I mean, St. Patrick's Day, we're all Irish. You can go down the list of
Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo. Some of the the Swedes and the Norwegians fight with each other in the cultural heritage that the center that they're trying to build. But the Coliseum needs to go back to that type of community. entertainment venue as well as the work of the MCC. The things we've seen at the Orpheum, what the Washington Pavilion has done of turning this building back into a community type of structure, the things that you want to see in a downtown, and that's what people are looking for. And it's hard to hate people who are your neighbors and you know. You hate people that you don't know and you don't understand. And if you don't share those things, that's where bad things happen. So again, we all love to share what it was like when we grew up, where we came from, what our grandparents and our parents taught us. The Orpheum, or the Coliseum, I'll get it. I'm sorry, thank you. The Coliseum is another one of those community centers that need to be part of who we are as a community.
Do you ever see it as kind of a drop-in center too, where people might come and hang, or is that maybe down the line, or not yet? Not yet. Okay.
No, we do have. We do open up right now to county employees to use it to walk at lunchtime. Sure. And yeah, but yeah, we haven't gotten into the drop-in kind of lounge.
And how long have you been in this new position?
Since November 1st.
Oh, well, geez, I thought you'd have it all solved already.
Yes, that's the expectation.
It's February.
Another thing we're exploring is having a pop-up lunch, and I think this was something that came out of the community table talks. Is we have a commercial kitchen there, and so I'm exploring ways that can be accessible to cooks that have cuisines from around the world, and we could have a once a week lunch shop there. So
nice. Yeah. Well, I'm going to watch for that. How do you need volunteers?
We're always looking for volunteers, and especially as the youth programming gets going, to be able to connect those groups with volunteers, I think would be an excellent asset for the MCC.
Okay. Well, if somebody wants more information about MCC, where do they go?
They can still email admin@sfmcc.org. And also my email address is valeria.wicker@lsssd.org.
All right. Well, thank you, and congratulations on the new position, and welcome to Sioux Falls.
Thank you.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to visit with Councilor Starr about what's going on in his district. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vandershoot from Falls Community Health, here today to talk about frostbite. Winters in South Dakota can become dangerous if you're not careful about preparing for your time outdoors. Frostbite occurs when your skin and the tissue beneath freezes. It can develop quickly in cold and windy temperatures. The first sign of frostbite is a cold, prickly feeling of the skin, often followed by numbness. You can protect yourself by limiting your time outdoors and wearing warm clothing that covers your hands and face. If you think you or a loved one may be developing symptoms of frostbite, please seek immediate medical care.
Welcome back to Inside Town Hall, where we are visiting with Councilor Pat Starr, who represents the Northeast District of Sioux Falls. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in your neighborhood, and what are you looking forward to accomplishing?
Well, the thing is I used to be a really big proponent of term limits, but now that I've been here for 7 years, I feel like I have all this institutional knowledge that I want to stay forever, but my family's ready to have me home on Tuesday night. So it's a year, so it doesn't sound that long, but even a year, there's a lot going on. So
it's been 7 years?
It's been 7 years that I've served on the council, and it's been a family event for us, whether it's Sunday afternoon drives to look at upcoming zoning changes, to serving at different nonprofits around the community, a number of events and cultural things that we've had a chance. And the thing I said at the beginning, and it's been pretty consistent, is that it was a family thing for us, that my kids have grown up being zoning nerds. Now, they're not like some of my fellow counselors in the zoning knowledge, but they're pretty close. When a 10-year-old says to you, Dad, why can't Mrs. Brown just do whatever she wants with her property? And having to to explain, well, that's why we have zoning, so that it's compatible for the entire community. But over the next year, there's some real challenges that we have in Sioux Falls. And I say this all the time. The mayor gets to kiss babies and cut ribbons and celebrate today's successes. Our job as the council is to set policies that will make us into the future a great community. So when my kids decide to do community service and be involved in the community and stay in the community, they'll say we made the right choices today that really take us into the future to be successful. Sioux Falls really had great leadership 20 and 30 years ago to set us up for today. Our job's to fight and argue and work through the muck of trying to make sure that we're a great community 20 years from now.
Okay, and you talked about winding down your last year on the council. What's your advice for people who might consider running for city council?
Well, first of all, there's a school board election, so I like to go election by election. So we'll have an election in May for our Sioux Falls School Board. We have 7 or 8 different school districts in the city of Sioux Falls, so there's lots of opportunity to be involved in local government because, as far as I'm concerned, that's where it happens. We get things dictated to us by the feds, by the state, but really we have to put it in place and take care of our citizens. So school board is such a vital function of what happens in our community and educating our next generation. So, and then a year from now we'll have 4 council seats, 3 incumbents that will be term limited out. So it's been an interesting 7 years and then into 8, but it's an awesome opportunity to get to know your community, to get to serve and make us a better community to live in.
What do you want to accomplish in the next year or so?
Sure, those are always the toughest things, but I want to work towards making our community safer. We heard it again this week in the news. There are more handguns being found in unlocked cars. If you're a gun owner, you have to be a responsible gun owner and secure your weapon. No one is entitled to leave your vehicle or a gun unlocked because the police are hearing the reports of the guns being stolen out of cars, and a month from now, those are the next ones that are shooting at the cops. You are no longer a victim if you don't properly secure your vehicle. To do that, we have an amount of crime that we have to talk about. We haven't talked about it in the community. I've had 2 friends now that have had vehicles stolen out of their garage at their house. One, the thief went into their house to their keyboard because their walk door wasn't locked, their walk door into the house wasn't locked. They opened the door and grabbed the keys and drove the car out of the garage. It's happening more and more in Sioux Falls, and we've got to get to the reason why that's there. We're going to continue to see more gun violence. We're seeing drugs that are just taking over our community in horrible ways. And again, we don't want to talk about the nitty-gritty of it, but it's the council's responsibility to say, what are we doing? Because once we lose feeling safe in our community, it never comes back. We fight for it, we try to bring it back, we try to do a better job, but we're not going to do that. Is that a simple answer? No. It's not an easy thing. It's not something that's going to happen. But I always say 2 things. It goes back to education and wages. If you're able to make a living, pay your bills, raise your kids, you're not out stealing guns out of people's cars. You're not doing that. So we have to continue to bring jobs that pay to our community. Being able to provide a safe place for people to live. We're seeing on a national level, the feds are making let's get you housed first and then we'll treat you. Right now, we make people have to be perfect human beings before we'll hold that carrot of affordable housing out to them. So we've got some things we can do in housing. We've got some things we can do in workforce development. Again, not going to change in the next year. But the first thing that we have to do is we have to talk honestly about that. We've done a lot of that honest talk at the MCC as part of that, of what the community needs. And safety and potholes, we're gonna have some potholes to fill this spring.
Well, this is not your last time on Inside Town Hall, so we can talk about more of that on the next time you're on. And that's our time right now, so join us next month If you want more information about what's going on in Sioux Falls, go to siouxfalls.org. Thanks for watching.